you day you give us life in our bodies and strength in our limbs. I pray that you will have your way over the course of these proceedings as we debate the topics, Daddy God. I pray, Lord God, that we'll open our minds to receive whatever is debated, whatever is discussed, whatever that is shared, and open our hearts to new perspective. Have your way in your name. Amen. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you. So let me officially welcome you to the semi-final round of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition. Good afternoon to all those present, our students from the Alpha Waldron SDA Academy, from the St. Mary's Academy, the students of the Dominica State College, Literary and Debating Society who are present, our judges, our members of the organizing committee for the debating competition, our teachers, and of course the media. Good afternoon to the listeners on DBS Radio, on BNO, Dominican News Online, on Vivian TV, and on Ever News. Good afternoon to you. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear. So this afternoon we have the very interesting task of determining who will make it to the finals of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition. And of course, many of us here have gone through this multiple times before, round one, round two, but I just need to remind everybody of the rules of the debate which will be going on this afternoon. So this afternoon, we will hear from the Alpha Waldron SDA Academy, who is the proposing team, and the St. Mary's Academy, who is the opposing team. Some brief reminders of the rules. In this debate, the leader of the proposition will make her case for 10 minutes, a maximum of 10 minutes, and then the leader of the opposition will make his case for a maximum of 10 minutes. Then the second speaker of the proposition will make her case for a maximum of 7 minutes, and the second speaker of the opposition will make his case for a maximum of 7 minutes. After this time, we will take a 5-minute break in which the students will be allowed to prepare their rebuttal, and at that point, the audience should be very quiet whilst they prepare. At the end of this 5-minute period, we will begin the rebuttal round. In the rebuttal round, each speaker has 3 minutes in which to deliver his or her rebuttal. Just to remind our debaters this afternoon, the timekeeper who will be seated directly in front of you, will be given a warning signal 1 minute before the expiration of your allotted time for each of your presentations, both the rebuttal and your prepared presentation. Following the rebuttal, our esteemed judges will be escorted to a secure venue outside of this room, and they will deliberate, and then in quick time they will deliver to us their results and their critique of the debate. Okay, so let me just speak to you now about who the judges are for this afternoon's debate. This afternoon we have 3 judges who will be given the task of giving the results of who will make it to the finals. Mr. David Edwards is the chief judge this afternoon. Yes, Mr. Edwards is the chief judge this afternoon. He is the former principal of the St. Andrews High School, and he's a regional consultant on development projects. Mr. Edwards, good afternoon to you and welcome.
Thank you.
Our second judge is Ms. Gail Sharpless. Gail Sharpless describes herself as a bubbly individual, and that is indeed true. She enjoys meeting new people. She has a Bachelor's of Arts in Mass Communication with a concentration in Public Relations and a Master of Education degree with a concentration in Workforce Training, Adult and Continuing Education. She's currently a lecturer at the Dominica State College and a dear colleague of mine. Welcome to Ms. Gail Sharpless. And our third judge is Mrs. Elizabeth Xavier Daly. She has a Bachelor's of Education in Educational Administration from the UWI and a Master's of Science in Educational Leadership from the University of Leicester. She has had a long career as an educator, serving as a teacher, a preschool administrator, a deputy principal, and a principal at both the high school and primary school level. So good afternoon and welcome to Mrs. Elizabeth Xavier Daly. Thank you. So we have 3 judges. Thanks. Thank you. We have 3 judges who have their work cut out for them. This afternoon, the topic which will be debated is: there should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in schools' dress codes. And I will repeat the moot: there should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in schools' dress codes. Let me now invite the debaters to take center stage. From the Alpha Waldron SDA Academy, the first speaker is Ms. Berja Bertrand. Please stand. And the second speaker, Ms. Shireen Carbon. Please come to the front and take your seats. So welcome to the team from the Alpha Waldron SDA Academy, Ms. Berja Bertrand and Ms. Shireen Carbon. On the opposing side from the St. Mary's Academy, the first speaker will be Mr. Ajanaya Kazimi. And the second speaker, Mr. Jahaziel John. Please come forward. Mr. John, if I mispronounce your name, tell me.
It's fine.
All right. So welcome. Welcome to the debaters who have taken their seats. So it's time to get started with the debate, which is what we are here for this afternoon. Is everybody ready? Debaters, are you ready? Yes? Okay. Judges, are you ready? Media houses, I hope you're ready, and we're on live and in living color. Members of the audience, are you ready?
Oh yes.
All right. So let's get started with the debate. I invite to begin the first speaker from the proposing side, Ms. Berja Bertrand, who will have 10 minutes in which to deliver her arguments. Welcome, Ms. Bertrand.
Madam Moderator, Honorable Judges, my most worthy opponents, supporters, good afternoon. On September 7, 2022, the Antigua Observer reported, and I quote, "The Cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda, having met today, all members present, 3 days following the reopening of all schools, public and private, expressed its strong condemnation of several schools, both private and public, that discriminate against Rastafarians and those students who wear their natural hair uniforms." The executive said in a statement, "If it becomes necessary, the Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda will be induced to change policy into law." End quote. This all happened because a 5-year-old girl was refused entry into a class because she was wearing locks. Today, my colleague and I stand here to propose to you that there should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in schools' dress codes. Permit me to define the key terms. According to the Oxford Dictionary, elimination is the process of removing or getting rid of something completely. Restrictions are rules or laws that limit what you can do or what can happen. Hairstyles are defined as a style in which somebody's hair is cut or arranged. And finally, the Cambridge Dictionary.org defines dress code as a set of rules about clothing and appearance in a school or place of work. As a first speaker, I will be expanding on the following points. 1. The current rules on hairstyles stifle self-expression. 2. Hairstyles do not prevent or influence learning. And 3. The Education Act does not mandate hair restrictions. My colleague will be presenting on the point, restrictions on hairstyles infringe on the fundamental rights of students and these restrictions are discriminatory. Firstly, the current restrictions on hairstyles which exist in our schools stifle the creativity and self-expression of students. From my perspective, the perspective of a high school student, adolescence is one of the most emotionally charged moments in a person's life. It is a time of great change, both physical and mental, especially mental. And the only way that many teenagers feel like they can truly express what they are feeling is through their appearance. A research paper published in Frontiers in Psychology by Weber and Freud in 2016 states, and I quote, "One important goal of education is to develop students' self-esteem, which in turn hinges on their self-concept in the academic, physical, and social domains." A sample of 2,950 students from a broad range of German secondary schools aged 10 to 19 years responded to a questionnaire assessing multiple self-concept facets. We examined which self-concept aspects predict self-esteem best and whether the pattern is across genders and achievement levels using latent regression analysis. Results show that self-concept of appearance is still by far the strongest predictor. This shows us that appearance plays an important role in the body images of teenagers, and allowing them to wear their hair as they please will give them an emotional outlet that is not only safe, but also healthy. Some schools require that all their students wear their hair in the same style of cut. This limits the ability of students to express themselves how they see fit, and it can be particularly distressing for those whose hair is a significant part of their cultural and personal identity. In preparation for this debate, my school conducted a survey across most of the Caribbean's English-speaking islands to find out the number of schools which impose restrictions on hairstyles, the students' views of these restrictions, and the impact of these restrictions on their learning. Out of the 259 respondents, 235 or 90.7% responded that their school had restrictions on hairstyles, and the effect on self-expression was one of the most popular reasons for the need for elimination. All across the world, government policymakers, educators, stakeholders, psychologists, and most importantly, students and parents are all echoing the same thing that we are saying here today. There is a need for the elimination of the restrictions on hairstyles in schools. To be honest with you, my most worthy opponents, I find it a little hard to believe that you yourself are not disturbed by how there is little to no room for self-expression in our schools. Isn't it strange how we come in, when we get dressed in the morning, we have to turn off who we are and how we feel and conform to a set rules. Yet, when we sit in our classes, we have to switch on our individuality and give authentic responses based on how we feel, switch on, switch off. My second point is that a student's hairstyle does not prevent him or her from learning. Madam Moderator, have you ever heard of any case in point where a student has somehow been unable to learn because of the way their hair was styled? I have searched high and low, and I have yet to find any proof that a student's hairstyle somehow results in poor academic performance. What I have found is that there's an inconsistency in school rules related to hairstyles, and what is acceptable in one school is unacceptable in another. SMA has been featured among the top performing schools in the CSEC exams. Some of the boys who sat the exam had the hairstyle referred to as fades, but they still excelled. My school does not allow fades, but for the last 2 consecutive years, males with flat haircuts topped the CSEC results on Island. The Trotters and Burtons, past students of the Dominica Grammar School, who all carried their locks, were top performers on Island. So tell me, judges, what conclusion can be drawn from this? I can hear my opponents whisper that irrespective of hairstyle, students are very capable of learning, and not just learning, but excelling even. So I'm asking again, what exactly is the rationale for these restrictions on hairstyles if they do not actually affect students' ability to learn? And please, my opponents, do not come with the view that these hairstyles are somehow distracting, because I have taken up the task of visiting numerous preschools on Island. And in preschool, which is considered the most critical stage for learning, you will find preschoolers with short hair, long hair, twists, locks, boys with ponytails, and the list goes on and on. So if this stage is so critical to learning, and if hairstyles are somehow so distracting, why are there no restrictions on hairstyles in preschools? The same should apply to students at all levels of education, Guyana as Minister of Education, Honorable Mani Chan, and I quote, "Rules restricting hairstyles do not affect the curriculum in any way, but instead pose a confidence issue, a self-esteem issue. My most worthy opponents, rules restricting hairstyles do not affect the curriculum in any way. Instead, it stifles the creativity of students, their identity, and stops them from expressing themselves." In November 2020, Yale University conducted a study which proved that hairstyles can boost your confidence. This added confidence boost will allow you to feel more strongly about yourself and may even help you to face new challenges that you thought were super difficult before. Changing things up in a hairstyle is a great way to boost confidence and self-esteem, and this positively impacts your learning. This, my most worthy opponents, should be the main focus of schools, your ability to learn. My third and final deposit in this argument is probably the most important. The Ministry of Education and the Education Act has no clear guidelines for hairstyles in schools. In fact, permit me to quote directly from the Act. In Section 17, subsection D, under the heading Student Responsibility, I quote, "Every student enrolled in a public or assisted school shall observe standards approved by the Chief Education Officer or Principal, as the case may be with respect to 1. Cleanliness and tidiness of the person, 2. General deportment and attire," end quote. In Education Regulations in the 2011 amended edition, under Section 77, Code of Dress of Students states, and I quote, "Every principal of a public or private assisted school shall consult with the Chief Education Officer in determining the uniforms to be used by students at the school and shall be set up in the schools," end quote. Shocking, right? I know. The Education Act is a governing document for education on our island, and that document does not outline any clear guidelines related to hairstyles. This means two things. 1, students are left to be controlled based on the stereotypes, preferences, and separate worldviews of educators and school boards. And 2, that the governing education body in our country does not see the necessity of imposing these restrictions, since it has no actual bearing on education. If you scan for the Education Act, you'll find clear guidelines for almost every other topic, but the guidelines which we are debating here today are not clear. In fact, honorable judges, an official from the Ministry of Education shared that principals were recently reminded to be careful in their impositions of hairstyle restrictions on students, since it is not backed up by any actual policy. If the Act does not outline it, then it should not be enforced. Let me remind you, restrictions on hairstyles in our schools should be removed because they limit self-expression, do not prevent learning, and are not supported by the governing bodies of education on island or the Education Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bertrand. And for the judges, her time was 10 minutes and 2 seconds. We now move to the first speaker of the St. Mary's Academy to oppose the topic. And the first speaker is Mr. Ajanaya Kazimi. He will have 10 minutes in which to deliver his arguments. Mr. Kazimi.
Good afternoon, all honorable judges, Madam Moderator, my valuable colleague, and my worthy opponents, and you, the audience. Pleasant good afternoon. I stand before you today to debate the topic that there should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in school dress codes. In solidarity with my colleague and using solid evidence, I promise to convince you that there should be an elimination of that there should not be an elimination of restrictions which exist in school dress codes. According to the Oxford Dictionary, elimination can be defined as the complete removal or destruction of something. According to the Collins Dictionary, a restriction is an official rule that limits what you can do. Hairstyle, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is defined as a particular way in which one hair is styled or cut. A school, according to that same source, is an institution for educating pupils, while a dress code is a set of rules specifying the required manner of dress. Therefore, the topic at hand can be perceived to mean that there should be a removal of rules which limits the way a pupil can style his or her hair in a learning institution. My colleague and I strong disagreement with this topic and shall prove to you why there should not and should never be an elimination of restrictions which exist in the school's dress codes. I shall expound on the fact that hairstyle keeps a uniform setting and the fact that these hairstyles prepare students for the professional world, while my partner shall discuss how these hairstyles can cause distractions and may lead to unhealthy competition and even bullying. Ladies and gentlemen, we ought to keep into consideration that an institution is formed because a goal needs to be reached. No matter the type of institution, clear expectations and standards needs to be established for the whole community to help the community reach its common goals. In order for this to occur, there must be a set of rules and regulations to be followed. In schools, one such rule deals with the dress codes on students' hairstyles. Madam Moderator, according to Professor Mohammed Kavi in an article entitled A Survey of the Effective Factors in Students' Adherence to University Dress Code Policy, states, open quote, one of the social functions of dressing is its identification capacity, because type of dressing represents a society's traditions, values, and beliefs. Close quote. This means, therefore, that viewpoints, norms, and values are the particular dimensions of culture which are reflected in one's appearance. In an attempt to achieve a uniform school with strong cultural values and norms, and to help in the creation of the identity of the school community, management specifies rules and regulations, including restrictions on hairstyles. For example, St. Mary's Academy Code of Conduct states that dress code serves as a reminder that we represent the St. Mary's Academy. It goes on to say that hair must be well groomed, well combed, no plaits, no rough tops, clothes, or designs are allowed. And it should not be more than half an inch in height and should not touch the collar of the shirt. These regulations guide its members and bring all students to a level ground. In the absence of restrictions on hairstyles, students will be free to wear whatever hairstyle they please without the consideration of the values of the school and the identity in which it would like to portray. My worthy opponents, we both attend church schools, so are you insinuating that schools like ours, which value modesty, self-respect, and dignity, should remove restrictions on hairstyles? We all know the popular saying, give a person a foot and they will take a mile. If students are allowed to come to school with whatever hairstyle they want, whether it may be mohawks, long hair, dyed hair, colorful waves, derogatory symbols in their hairstyles, would that be in keeping with the values of our schools? To develop a person holistically? Would we truly be identified as men of St. Mary, or in your case, girls of Orford Wardens, Seventh-day Adventist School? These hair restrictions are only meant to set clear expectations and standards as to what is acceptable in the school setting and to create identity, and rightly doing so. Furthermore, my most worthy opponents, the hair code helps prepare students for the professional world. Madam Moderator, my opponents may want you to believe that people become employed merely because of their abilities, skills, and experience, and not because of their hairstyle. But, like it or not, this is far from the truth. In the world of work, appearance is important, and your hairstyle forms part of your appearance. Most jobs require individuals to be well groomed, but personal grooming cannot be limited to what you wear, as neglecting personal hygiene and hairstyles can ruin the image in which one wishes to present. The expression first impressions are lasting impressions can be more evident when an individual presents himself for an interview. Most employers form a first impression of the candidate during the first few seconds of a meeting. According to Kenneth Bird, co-founder of Close Century, in an article entitled, Does Hairstyle Matter in an Interview? Says, the truth is that your hairstyle does matter in an interview. Others' perception of you is not only shaped by your past accomplishments and answers to interview questions, but it's also shaped by how you look, whether you're wearing formal clothes and how your hair is styled. styled. If your interviewer perceives your hairstyle to be rebellious, unprofessional, it could be held against you. Ladies and gentlemen, when the schools implement restrictions on hairstyles, essentially that's just one of the ways of preparing for the professional life and that successful job interview. Furthermore, by schools implementing these restrictions on hairstyles, they give students their first taste of working in a professional environment. We cannot deny that leaders and people in general measure our professionalism by how we look. And this is just the truth. The YP teachers, in a newsletter article entitled, "Should Schools Have the Authority Over Students' Hairstyle?" states that hair policies teach students to be professional and prepare them for the world outside school, where they need to be clean, tidy, and presentable in the workplace. After all, one's appearance is a testament of his or her personality and the organization's professional picture. Madam Moderator, colorful hairstyles or other potentially distracting hairstyles are not it in the workplace, unless of course you are in a worship job. There are many jobs, including those in food services, hospitality, education, and corporate jobs in law firms, which include strict hair restrictions on dress codes. For some jobs, hairstyle may be restricted because they are not professional or they may be a health and safety hazard, while others do not portray respectability. We must admit, though, that many companies have relaxed their internal dress code and offer minimal grooming standards to move with the times. Some stipulate that the hair can be long, but it must be slicked back, worn or combed or even covered. Whatever the stipulation may be, whether it may be minimal or not, there still exists some sort of restriction in the professional world. So, Madam Moderator, why do we want to remove these restrictions in our schools when our schools is geared towards the holistic formation of our students? My most worthy opponents, it is important to dress in line with the trend that your industry follows, but many of the industries require employees to be well-groomed, and that definitely takes into consideration that their hair must be well-groomed, and these are restrictions. Therefore, school is only preparing students for the professional world by having these restrictions. By removing restrictions on hairstyles in the name of freedom, we are only exposing ourselves to the elimination of other restrictions. First, we start with hair, then we move to uniforms, and then what will be next? Strict hair codes allow schools to create standards and help students develop professionalism early on in life. This prepares them for better roles in the future. We cannot afford to eliminate restrictions on hairstyles in our dress codes. This is dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazimi. For the judges, his time was 9 minutes and 24 seconds. We now move to the second speaker from the Arthur Waldron SBA Academy. She will have 7 minutes in which to present her arguments, and she is Ms. Shireen Carbon. I welcome her to the podium.
Madam Moderator, judges, my most worthy opponents, good afternoon. Like my colleague, I'm here in support of the most that there should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in school dress codes. I further support this because, number one, restrictions on hairstyles infringe on the fundamental rights of students, and number two, restrictions on hairstyles are discriminatory. Firstly, we'll examine more restrictions on hairstyles infringe on the fundamental rights of students. Rights are inherent to all human beings, regardless of age, gender, nationality, ethnicity, religion, etc. Therefore, restrictions on hairstyles which infringe on students' religious rights, cultural expression, freedom of expressions must, and I repeat, must be eliminated from school dress codes. In the school dress codes, emphasis should be placed on the neatness and cleanliness of the hair, and not on the hairstyle. Judges, please remind our opponents that rights and freedoms are crafted in such a way that one individual rights are not infringed upon, and nor do they infringe upon the rights of others. However, one may ask, how does restrictions on hairstyles infringe on the students' rights? The answer is simple. By restricting hairstyles in school dress codes, they show lack of understanding and respect for one's cultural expressions, freedom of expressions, and religious rights. Madam Moderator, let me reiterate, hairstyles are part of one's race, one's culture, and one's religion. And by ordering students to wear their hair otherwise, is fostering an environment of exclusivism instead of an inclusive world. To make matters worse, students are being denied their right to education because of the hairstyle. My most worthy opponents, in this day and age, do you really think that students should be denied an education because of the hairstyle they wear? However, in August 2020, the Supreme Court ruling banned Adobe Flux from entering a Kingston primary school in Jamaica. And in September 2022, a student with Flux was prevented from entering her class in Antigua on her very first day. The fact that students cannot gain entry into an educational institution because of a particular hairstyle means that they are being denied their right to an education. A right held up in the Constitution but denied at schools. And to add insult to injury, there is no uniformity in these dress codes in schools in Dominica, in the Caribbean, and even further afield. And like my colleague said, these restrictions are not even supported by the Education Act. That's why on June 14, 2021, the Jamaica Gleaner published an article captioned, and I quote, MOE warns against the barring of students over hairstyles. On March 13, 2022, the Guyana Chronicle issued a story moving forward with the changing of schools' hair rules. And on April 27, 2022, Barbara Today reported, I quote, Education Ministry to review schools' hairstyle policies, end of quote. That's because schools are left to impose their restrictions based on their whims and fancies, which they think are necessary. So my brother is denied an education at SMA, your school, because he has locks, but is accepted with his fame. He's accepted at grammar school with both his locks or his fame, but he's denied access at my school with either. Even at the Wesley High School, if a girl with blonde hair dyes it black, nothing will be done. But if a girl with black hair decides to dye it blonde, she'll be sent home immediately to dye it back to its original color. Teachers now have an extra burden being placed on them to examine even down to hair color. But what is the rationale for these restrictions if one school has it and the other doesn't? This brings me to my second point. Restrictions on hairstyles are discriminatory. Many of the restrictions pertaining to hairstyles in school dress codes affect specific students, especially black students, because of the way they are designed. This often results in unlawful, indirect discrimination. Indirect discrimination happens when a school applies a policy which puts students having a protected characteristic, like example, race or religion, at a disadvantage compared to students who don't share that characteristic. And that's according to the United Kingdom Equality and Human Rights Commission. My dear friends, do we want to wait for what's happened in the United Kingdom and the US to happen to us here in Dominica, where students like Jet Hawkins took their school to court because they were banned from wearing hairstyles like cornrows for boys, having locks, or being prevented from wearing cultural headwear on the school's premises? Madam Moderator, these cases were won by the students on the basis of race, religion, and even disability. The court ruled that the students were being indirectly discriminated against and that the school should amend their policies. Now, I know that my opponents may just argue that exceptions can be made. For example, those students who undergo cancer treatment will not wear wigs, scarves, or hair wraps. Muslims will not wear their hijabs. Black students will not wear the African heritage hair wraps. But how does one determine where and when these restrictions, these exceptions should start or end? Who really is the authority on this? What basis are going to be used to determine what are acceptable exceptions and what are not? Madam Moderator, in an effort not to discriminate, there is always going to be exceptions. Exceptions will become the law. My most worthy opponents, for almost all the hairstyle students wear, exceptions have to be made. If not for religion, for race. If not for culture, for sickness. Therefore, in an effort to say that one, not some, but that all of our students are being treated equally and are not discriminated against, and that two, in an effort to say that no rights of all students are infringed upon, you must agree that restrictions on hairstyles in the school rules must be eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cavan. For the judges, her time was 6 minutes and 43 seconds. We now move to the second speaker on the opposing team from the St. Mary's Academy, Mr. Jahaziel John. To deliver his arguments, he will have 7 minutes in which to do so. Mr. John.
Good afternoon to all. I rise today to support my colleague and to further prove to you that there should not be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in schools. My colleague has already proven to you that how hairstyles provide a uniform and cultured setting and the fact that having hairstyle restrictions imposed on students prepare them for the professional world. I will now demonstrate how various hairstyles will hinder the learning process and may even lead to bullying. Madam Moderator, my esteemed judges, an elimination of restrictions on something which seems as simple as a hairstyle may be in fact a major cause for distraction. The removal of restrictions could mean that students can come to school however they please, with long hair, short hair, colored hair, a mohawk, maybe even weaves, locks, or wigs, and any other extravagant or bold thing that they so desire. Let's be honest. What would we expect to happen in a setting like that, when all of these things become permissible? Allowing students to be unrestrained in their hairstyles will undeniably lead to students who will be so preoccupied with their classmates' hairstyles that they will no longer focus on their own schoolwork. Instead, they will focus more on the hairstyles of others, or perhaps even their own. They may lose focus on their work, forget to study in preparation for the hairstyles of tomorrow, and may spend time affixing the hair. Think of it, my dear opponents. You're sitting in a class, and your classmate comes to school in a 22-inch human Brazilian wig, and is impeccably looking. You simply just would not want to take your eyes off of her, and you would want to know you could get such a look just for yourself. And you may even forget you're in a classroom. Or let's say one of your classmates comes to school in a flaming burnt orange hair, and another one with half of his head shaved off. What would your first reaction be? Of course you would burst into laughter. And you would not, and your teacher would be unable to control the staring, the laughing, and the jeering that would certainly ensue. What if a student decides to come to school with his hair straight up to the sky, like Bart Simpson, and he sits in front of you, and you cannot see the teacher or even the blackboard? Isn't this a hindrance to your academic progress? The main reason why you are at school? Ladies and gentlemen, I could present countless variations of hairstyles which have the possibility of surfacing in our schools. Because if we remove restrictions, these are not far-fetched at all. Because when we remove restrictions, the possibilities are endless. And let us be reminded, we are not dealing with adults who have gained or who have already gained a certain level of maturity and restraint. We are dealing with children, and we all know that children are very easily distracted. Judges, the opponents may try to convince you that we are not over here, and that students' hairstyles do not affect their learning. But this ideology in itself is immensely misleading. If pupils are distracted by their hairstyles, how can they learn? How can they focus? We students already have sufficient distractions that hinder our academic progress, and we simply cannot afford to add any more distractions to our students. Lastly, an elimination of restrictions may lead to unhealthy competition and may even lead to bullying. In a school where children are already bullied for what they eat, what they wear, how they wear what they wear, who they associate with, and where they live, should we really add another level of social judgment to these poor children? While others may think that something that people won't care about as something as small as hairstyles, I can assure you that when we allow students to self-express, that this may certainly occur. That we, when allowing the removal of restrictions, are opening a very dangerous can of worms. We do not even have to do any extensive research to know that when people are bullied, it's simply because they're different. There are countless examples of students who have been bullied because they certainly disapplied to students' hairstyles at the Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. In 2021, the Charlotte Mecklenburg schools in North Carolina updated its students' code of conduct to prevent bullying and discrimination on the basis of appearance. Is this really what we want to achieve? Allowing students to get creative will result in a massive rise in bullying, causing plain mean comments and nicknames, which consequently lead to serious problems. The book entitled Bullying in School, written by Al Ali, states that bullying in school not only affects students' physical, emotional, and psychosocial lives, but it also affects their learning and academic achievements. Theoretical and empirical literature has also supported the direct association between bullying in students' academic achievements and learning. All in all, the restrictions of hairstyles are a cornerstone in the maintenance of order and discipline in our schools. Removal of these restrictions may have disastrous consequences which are not needed in the slightest. My most worthy opponents, you are trying to convince us that students should be free to express themselves. But at what cost? Is it at the cost of students trying to learn and being bullied for what they like? Or is it at the cost of their academic success, which parents are making countless sacrifices for? Or do we want to run the risk of creating students who are unfit for the professional world? By removing restrictions in the schools, dress codes, we will be adding one more nail to the coffin of our educational system. And we simply cannot allow this to happen. We rest our case.
Thank you, Mr. John. For the judges, this time was 6 minutes and 19 seconds. So this concludes the prepared presentations aspect of the debate. And now we give the debaters 5 minutes in which to prepare their rebuttal. I just want to, so timekeeper, your time in. I just want to take this opportunity briefly to thank the sponsors of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition. Of course, this competition has cost quite a bit of money and quite a bit of resources, and there are several companies who have supported this endeavor. So I'd like to thank India Assurance, AC Shillingford and Company Limited, Promise Mill, Domlec, Lindomart, Fine Foods Inc., the KFC division, Q95 Radio, DBS Radio, which is covering this meeting live this afternoon, the UE Open Campus, the Insurance Company of the West Indies, the Public Service Union, Body Bliss Spa, the National Bank of Dominica, Flow Dominica, the WASCO, Freeman Consulting Group LLC, which is a diasporans company, and she has assisted in this competition greatly with prizes, Josephine Gabriel and Company Limited, Dominica News Online, who is covering live this afternoon. Digicel, Vibian TV, also covering live. Western Illinois University, Val Ferry, Pearl Heartbeat, Springfield Trading Limited, National Cooperative Credit Union, and Lovely Things. So, with the rest of the time that we have, we will be silent so that the debaters can prepare their rebuttal. team from the Arthur Waldron SDA Academy, Ms. Bertrand, to deliver her rebuttal. I welcome her to the podium. Ms. Bertrand.
Judges, Madam Moderator, judges, my most worthy opponents, I stand here again to remind you of our position in this debate. My colleague and I have fully supported the moot that there should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles in schools because it restricts the self-expression and creativity of students. It does not affect their learning ability. The Education Act does not mandate hair restrictions. They infringe on the fundamental rights of students, and these restrictions are discriminatory. Today, my opponents presented the following points that, these restrictions on hairstyles prepare students for the professional world. It helps with uniformity, prevents bullying, and, some hairstyles cause distractions, and it's a waste of time. They mentioned that it will improve uniformity, or it helps with uniformity. But there's already no uniformity in hairstyles. If you look in the crowd, you will see students with all different kinds of hairstyles. And we think that this doesn't make any sense. There's already no uniformity, and as we mentioned, these rules always vary from school to school. They also mentioned that, these restrictions help with professionalism, and and we acknowledge that they may be right about that. But they mentioned if it helps with professionalism, why are there no hairstyle restrictions for university or preschools or even the American schools that they mentioned? They said when they mentioned the thing about professional, we remembered braids and wigs are professional, yet they are not allowed in some of our schools. Students only go to the extremes because they are restricted. One of the parents we interviewed in the US told us that her daughter attends one of the top middle schools in Brooklyn, Mark Twain School for the Gifted and Talented. This school has no restrictions on hairstyles or dress, but because of their exceptional performance in academics and arts, top high schools flock there yearly to recruit students. Madam Moderator, since any hairstyle is a norm at these schools, students are not distracted by them. So instead of having teachers policing students for their hairstyle, this time should be spent on more important matters that actually affect and influence students' learning. They mentioned about bullying. We do not believe that bullying victims should be punished and restricted from wearing their hairstyles at daylight because the bully does not like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bertrand. For the judges, her time was 2 minutes and 29 seconds. I now call on the leader of the opposing team from the St. Mary's Academy, Mr. Ajanaya Kazimi, to deliver the rebuttal for his team. Mr. Kazimi.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Moderator and judges. We talked about how having restrictions on hairstyles can help in the professional world and how it creates a uniform school, while my partner spoke about how it prevents distractions and prevents bullying also. Now, my opponent spoke about it stifles creativity, but we are by no means saying that children's creativity should be stifled. However, creativity should not come in the way of a child's education process. Parents work hard day and night for children to get an education, and hairstyles distractions come in distracting students. So my worthy opponents, creativity should not come in the way of students' academic process, in the students' academic learning. Giving children the avenue to come to school, a formal institution for educating pupils with whatever hairstyle they want, gives them an avenue to come to school with hairstyles that are not fitted for the school and work environment, therefore causing them to be distracted, which impedes the learning process. Do not get us wrong, and as a principal, there is nothing more satisfying and fulfilling for children to be able to express themselves openly. And yes, we totally understand that, and there are better ways to erect a child's creativity There are smarter ways, there are more constructive ways, and there are more worthwhile ways, such as culture and sports. Not these hairstyles should not come, as I said again, at the expense of a child's learning. And they spoke about discrimination. We all expected it. However, listen to this. Uniformity and standardization prevents discrimination. If students are on the same level with relatively the same hairstyle, how can one discriminate against another? How can one bully another? How can one make fun of another? How? It prevents children from looking down from one another because of their hairstyle, because all of the children are on the same level. A similar hairstyle code allows students to build a sense of belonging in the school community. It's a symbol where students can feel comfortable and united in purpose. Students interact better with each other knowing that they are equal. This forms one community bond and reduces the prospects of bullying and discrimination, as we said. So my judges and my moderator, we are in full support that there should not be an elimination of restrictions which exist on schools' dress codes. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazimi. For the judges, his time was 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, students, listeners on all the media platforms that we have present, this concludes the first semi-final debate between the Afro Waldron SDA Academy and the St. Mary's Academy. Let's give all the students a big round of applause for their effort this afternoon in seeking a spot for their school in the finals of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition. Judges, now the work is yours. I'd like to ask the judges coordinator, the judges assistant, to please escort the judges to their area for deliberation. And students, at this time, you can join your colleagues. The pressure is over for you, and we just await the judges' decision. So judges, take your leave. And I know my judge's assistant, Miss Janice Corbett of the DSC Literary and Debating Society, will keep a tight rein on you and the time that you take to deliver those results. So we'll see you shortly. Students, rejoin your colleagues. Thank you. Okay, so we had quite a spirited debate between the two schools. And in the time that we have to wait for the judges to deliberate, we typically engage the audience in a discussion on the moot. So not a discussion on the debaters and their performance, but a discussion on the topic at hand. So I'd like to ask one of the students of the DSC Literary and Debating Society, Megan, you can fulfill that role, to take the mic that we have, and we will go through the audience to get comments on the moot. Thank you, Megan. All right, so, yes, so the moot. There should be an elimination of restrictions on hairstyles which exist in schools' dress codes. We have quite a number of students present, both from the Afro Waldron SDA Academy and from the St. Mary's Academy. I want to know your true thoughts and feelings on restrictions that exist on hairstyles at your schools, and whether you believe that they should be eased up or eliminated. So who is batting first in this discussion? Who is batting first? Who would like to comment on the hairstyle restrictions that exist at your school or at schools, and whether or not you believe they should be eliminated. Should I do my normal teacher mode and just call somebody? That's what I like to do. Put students on the spot. But do I have a volunteer? Who wants to speak? I see a young man in red who I feel like I want to give his opinion. Megan, this gentleman in red. He looks like he wants to say something. Tell me what you think about the hairstyle restrictions. Talk to me. Talk to us.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Zami Smith. My thoughts on the restrictions is, I mean, it's true. I used to go to SME. My certain haircuts would be fades. It has to be low. That's the first one, like 1 inch low. I couldn't put like afros and things like that. And I don't know, I wanted to put like a nice curl in my hair, make it look nice, express myself. But then it was like, no, you can't do that. It has to be low. But now, if they bring that in, I mean, it could help some of them students like express themselves and things like that, because like, let's say,
Helps with expression.
yeah, sorry, this one.
Happily.
Let's see. Alright, let me see. Okay, good. Let's say for the bullying. Some of the bullies, they will bully people like on their hair, the way they dress, something like that. So like, the bullies, they really have good hairstyle. They compliment them on how their hair looking old, your hair too high, or your hair looking dirty, and things like that, or long, and things. But can they hair grow too? Yes. That's the question too. Can they hair grow? Do they take care of their hair too? So like, if a student like grow there and like express themselves, show like how it should be helped. That I mean, that could help the student too, and the bully, and show them that, wow, okay, I was wrong about that person. I should have listened to them and not bully them.
Thank you. I see Miss Carmen wants to speak. I'm going to pick on the educators in the room in a while, so be ready. Yes, Miss Carmen.
So with the restrictions on hairstyles, a lot of like in our schools, there was two styles systems, like child hair was supposed to be too small, like single parts and small, so I cannot wear. But in our school, what I really don't understand is why boys cannot wear fits. It kind of fits. It doesn't really make sense to me. Or like all girls can wear braids all weeks to school. I mean, like if you don't put a braid and then you can for like 3-4 weeks with that on your head, and you can have more time on the weekends to study. So I don't see the sense of having to sit down there every week, having to be combing your hair just for it to get wassy like a couple of days, and then coming to work again where you can have a protective hairstyle that can last longer. And also, like it also has certain rules that affects like let's say a black boy in our school has a certain hairstyle, or like his hair gets a little bit too high, they'll tend to cut off. But let's say it has an Indian or Caribbean student or school, they don't care. Like I see their hair growing out longer than the boys, and they don't say anything. Weeks pass, I'm waiting. I say no, we have them. And with the black boys, by the time they see you with an inch on the hair, they say, go to cut it, or else by whatever day you will not be allowed to enter the school. So I really don't think that is necessary. And also with children, girls that have shorter hair, I want to wear puffs, as long hair. not allowed to wear puffs. I don't really feel that fear because I wear puffs. When I don't want to be sitting down there for my hair for all that hours. I just want to do my hair up and go to school. So why do they get the right to go and do it and I don't? Just because my hair was so what you want to do? Cut it. I want my hair. I feel like it's a lot of exceptions and feel like that's in the restrictions. So I don't really think that like just because your hair is shorter than mine or just because you're that race, you can do it by talent.
Thank you, thank you. And so she brought up this aspect of the racial divide, you know, different people from different ethnic backgrounds being allowed to do different things in terms of their hair. Now, I said I have a few educators, former principals of secondary schools in the room. I have quite a few, and I want to hear the voice of an educator in terms of this hairstyle rule and the concept of creating distractions, the extreme hairstyles. So from an administrative perspective, you know, what is your view on the hairstyle restrictions and whether or not they can be eliminated? As I said, I don't want to be the teacher, Miss Christian, and call on somebody. So I want an educator to volunteer to give me their opinion on this hairstyle elimination topic. Oh, okay, so I'm going to do the Miss Christian. I'm going to, I see no hands. Okay, Mrs. Williams wants to comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give two perspectives, one from a student of long ago and one from working in an educational institution. So when I was a student years ago at grammar school, the measures back then were not as stringent as it was now. I could go to school with my hair in plaits, I've done that already, because my hair was natural, very, very, very thick, and not all the time I could comb it. My mom used to help me comb it. And go to school with plaits or with one or with different things, so it wasn't as stringent as it was now. And it didn't really affect those of us at the time because the bulk of us at the time of Fit4 got scholarships, etc. We did very, very well at CXC, so for us it wasn't really affecting. So I do understand that perspective. However, I also get why it can be, I don't want to say quote unquote distraction, but it can cause an issue. So for me, I would agree to not totally eliminating, but adjusting and updating those measures to some extent. So I know some of those who have issues with hair loss and hairline issues, so some of the hairstyles can be protective of that. So always having the hair in one actually can be more detrimental to a student when they have to constantly be brushing all the time. For a female student, that's not a good thing. It causes hair damage and etc. So for me, I would update and edit those measures. I would not allow students to wear braids all the way to their ankles. That's a little extreme. However, I do believe that some measures need to be updated. Some need to be removed because if some schools allow boys to have fades and some are not, then of course the body needs to be changed that way as well. But that's just.
Thank you. Thank you. At the Dominica State College, we noticed that when the students come to the college, they come from the high school environment, one of the first things they do is change their hairstyle. So often, because we don't have those restrictions on hairstyles, once they get to the state college, they have a drastic change, especially the boys. They start growing their hair, they start wearing something different. The girls start wearing the braids and the weaves. So we see quite a difference just over the summer between a fifth former, summertime, and starting at the state college in September. We see the change in the hairstyle. So what does that mean for the students? What does that mean? Were they being repressed at the high school with the hairstyle rules? So I want to hear a comment on that. Why the drastic change as soon as you enter the tertiary level institution? Any student wants to comment? I see Ms. Bertrand's hand is up. I see a young man at the back. Okay, Megan, the young man wants to speak. No, go to him because he hasn't gotten a chance.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I attend the St. Mary's Academy, and I personally think that it is outrageous because yeah, it's your beauty, but at the same time, I think that people with like dreads and things, I want to put it personally, I want to put them. I look nice in dreads, I think, but it's like people. When I go to attend the Dominica State College, I will put it because I know they don't really take actions to that. But I can see that it will become a distraction to me because I know my friends would probably like say they want to touch it or they want to see it or they want to take pictures or something like that. So I know it will be a distraction to us. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you. Somebody else? Who else? Megan? Mr. Gregoire, okay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
I was at school many moons ago, so I just wanted to make a few comments about restrictions generally. At school, any opportunity we got to rebel, we did that. Not only here, but anything. There are a lot of rules. Any chance you get to break the rule, you break the rule. Of course, you get punished. And in most cases, whatever rule, there are pros and there are cons. Pros and cons. But later on in life, when you start to go out to the workplace, you realize that the restrictions were good. That's what made your character, that's what made you who you are because of the way you, I don't want to say discipline, but the way you constructed. So you become a mature person and you realize that those restrictions were good at the time. But at school, we really have to break every rule we can. We never get a chance. But we got punished for that. And severely as well. Not there depends on punishment. In those days, break the rule, get a black book, get a detention, get caned. There was no negotiation. That's it. And we took out our punishment like men. We didn't cry, we took like men, and some of us, you can see us now struggling until because we can take it. That's the general comment I like to make.
Thank you. I remember Miss Victor, your hand was up. You still want to go? Okay. Come to the front, Megan. No? Yes? Okay, go ahead.
I think that the reason that a lot of students, as soon as they leave high school, they go crazy with their hair, is because when you like oppress or restrict somebody for a while, the moment they get like a little bit of freedom, they're going to go crazy. That's why, like when parents, like you see children with like ultra strict parents that don't allow them to do anything, as soon as they leave the house, they like turn into these like wild, crazy children. You're sure that it's the same personality from high school? It's because they don't have any freedom to do anything. So I don't think that all restrictions should be lifted, but I do feel like a lot of the restrictions don't make sense. And like I mentioned in my report, like the only stages of education where there are really any restrictions, primary and high school, and then you can just go crazy. I just don't understand why.
Thank you. I can attest to that fact myself. Not for hairstyles. For me, it was the piercings. So yes, the restrictions that existed in school. You know, once I didn't have them anymore, the ears had to start to be pierced. I see we have a young man who wants to speak from the SMA. Whose hand was up? Yes, go ahead. Mr. John.
I think I know why it is that when we go to college, most people just go crazy with it. I think it's because that when you go to college, you feel like you're an adult now and you can do whatever you want. So me personally, when I become an adult or get old enough to call myself an adult, I want to do whatever I feel like is good for me and do whatever I feel like is fun. So yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to comment? Mr. Kazimi?
I'm in actually half and half with this topic because I totally disagree of my actual topic. I think
So you agree with the proposal
yeah,
side?
I understand that. Firstly, I do not like that there are a lot of biases and discrimination against people with locks or people with long hair. And as she said, white people sometimes with their straight hair, they have minimum restrictions on them. So I don't like that. And I don't like the fact that when people see somebody with that different type of hairstyle, they immediately picture them as that type of person, that type of person. Or, you know, I don't really agree with that. And yeah, stereotypes. And but on the other hand, I do agree that certain hairstyles can be a health and safety hazard because sometimes if you're in a workplace and you have a long hair and come in front of you, it can be a distraction to you. It really can be a distraction. So in all, I do not like the discrimination, but on the other hand, I understand why there should be some restrictions of hairstyles.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Casimir. So you oppose the topic, but you say you actually agree with the proposition. Okay. Anybody else wants to comment? Yes.
With the restrictions on hairstyles, as you can see, in all of the religious schools, there are restrictions on hairstyles, especially for boys, because of what St. Peter said, that the boys should not have long hair. But anyways, I really don't feel like if the religion wants to be respecting themselves, why do we disrespect other religions? Like Rastafarian, why do we disrespect them but we want them to respect us and send it to us? There are Rastafarians who are smart, there are Rastafarians who are kind, respectful, they are known to be peaceful people. So why should we deny them an education at our institution because we feel like boys should not have long hair, they can't go to school? I agree.
So the religious discrimination aspect. Okay, I see Megan. Well, Megan, take the mic and make your point.
I'm Megan. Hi. So, as you can see, I love my hair a lot. Yes. And I went to the convent high school, and convent does have a restriction on hairstyles. But if you ask me, there wasn't any, because I used to go to school at the elementary. And I'm not sure if it was just a meeting because I couldn't, other students in my grade complained about how they would say that they couldn't wear certain hairstyles. So maybe it wasn't really me or I don't know. But in terms to what you said, I feel like if you have a school that's already been established, they have their backgrounds, they have their rules, they have what they're going on, me as my school should not adjust myself. So personally, I was a school, I would not change my morals or what I believe in or what I think my restrictions are because the times are changing or because I want to be more modern or something like that. So if I, as a Catholic school, believe that I don't want Rastafarians in my school, then that's me. But it's really not fair of you to come to my school and say I should change my rules. That makes sense, right? Like, don't come here and tell me you should accept me in your school and you should change your rules because this and that. Don't come to my school. That's a school. There are other schools on the island. I'm pretty sure SMA isn't the only school with a good education. If they don't want you to wear your hair like that, you knew the rules before you came to the school, then follow the rules of the school.
Thank you. So I think now bringing up the concept of choice of the educational institution that you attend and just sucking it up and going with the rules, that might open a whole other can of worms, but the judges are back. So therefore, the discussion aspect of this these proceedings have to come to an end. And for the people who are already here for the second debate, I see we already have our judges for the second debate coming in. We started a bit late for the first debate, so we apologize, but we are wrapping up this first debate. Now, initially the idea was to have the results at the end of both debates, but I'm going to change that idea because the room is crowded and we need to make way for the second debate, so there's no room to withhold the results till the end. So we're going to ask for the chief judge to deliver his critique of this debate between the Afro-Walter SD Academy and the St. Mary's Academy. I'm missing one judge. Okay, but you ready to?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. David Edwards, the chief judge, will now deliver the critique.
Okay, I'll be very short. You did an excellent job, and I think you deserve. We were quite impressed with the level of research that you did. We observed that both teams did an impressive level of research. It was also very impressive that you actually cited authority, which is a very important thing. You actually reminded all the listeners that it's useful to use authorities to make decisions. You also reminded the listeners that it's very useful, very important to draw on case studies. We noted that you referenced case studies that were very culturally appropriate, meaning that you were dealing with the situation of hairstyles in the Caribbean and the people who were largely of African descent, and you actually referenced Caribbean case studies. So that was very appropriate and very impressive. It was also noted that one of the teams took the steps to collect primary data. So not only did you rely on secondary data and unpublished material, the gray material, but you actually went out and did some survey yourself, collecting primary data. And again, that reminds the listeners that when you're seeking to make decisions, that is important. So it's very impressive that even as secondary students, you valued the use of not only secondary data, but primary data and case studies. We noted that there was a bit of departure by one team from the essence of the subject, of the issue, in the sense that too often that team's arguments were skewed towards the dress code as opposed to the hairstyle. So that was a bit of a negative. In terms of the use of rebuttal time, we, the judges, concluded that that was not well optimized, and both teams are guilty of that. You could have made much better use of the rebuttal time. But all in all, you did very well. You certainly have a lot to offer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edwards, and thank you to the judges Thank you to the judges for their work. So the time is here to announce the results, or to get to the results of this first semi-final debate. And of course, I have the great privilege of doing so. Now, the team who wins this afternoon will be moving to the finals, which will be on April 5th. And we expect to have a very competitive debate on that day, as the semi-final has proven to be very competitive. So, we have different prizes this afternoon. We will have a winner. We also have the prize for the best speaker for this debate, and we also have a special prize this afternoon for best rebuttal. Some of the prizes are not here, and they will come after, but there are quite a few prizes to be given. Now, there are two scores I will read. One team scored 668 points out of a possible 780 points. And another team scored 646 points out of the possible 780. The team scoring 668, the winning team is the Afro Waldron Academy, and the runner-up this afternoon is the St. Mary's Academy. And it's an interesting afternoon because this is the second time the Afro Waldron SD Academy is coming up against the St. Mary's Academy. These two schools faced off against each other in round one. The result was different. The Afro Waldron SDA proceeded to round two because they had the highest score of a school that did not win in round one, and now they have made it to the finals. Congratulations to the Afro Waldron SDA Academy and to the St. Mary's Academy for the strong fight. Fought them in round one and came back to fight them in the semifinals. The best speaker in this afternoon's debate was judged to be Miss Berja Bertrand of the Afro Waldron SDA Academy. And the best rebuttal was judged as Mr. Ajanaya Kazimi of the St. Mary's Academy. So now I'd like to do some presentations of prizes. So firstly, I will call on the boys from the St. Mary's Academy, Mr. Ajanaya Kazimi and Mr. Jahaziel John, to receive their prizes and their trophies. Come forward. The two can come. So Mr. Kazimi, first speaker, congratulations. And Mr. John. And just to tell our viewers, the students are receiving, the runners-up are receiving gift certificates from Body Bliss Spa. They are receiving a gift certificate from HHV Whitchurch and Company Limited. They are receiving some Bluetooth headphones from one of our sponsors. They will also be receiving vouchers on Val Ferry. It's big. So quite a few prizes for our runners-up. Let me call on Mr. Kazimi, who won the award for the best rebuttal. He receives a gift certificate from Lovely Things. Best rebuttal, Mr. Ajanaya Kazimi. Congratulations. And let me call on the coach from the St. Mary's Academy, Mrs. Kushna Telemak Rabas, who has coached and assisted the students. One feature of the Intersecondary Schools Debating Competition is that we recognize the coaches, because as a coach myself for umpteen years. We often don't get any recognition, and we know the coaches put in a lot of hard work. So congratulations, Mrs. Rabes, and thank you so much for bringing your team all the way to the semi-finals. And now I would like to call on the winners of this afternoon's debate from the Afro Waldron SDA Academy, Miss Berja Bertrand and Miss Shireen Carbon, to receive their prizes. Their trophies. So the winners this afternoon, this is the first round we're giving the winners a prize. Flo has sponsored, each winner will be getting a Fire tablet from Flo. Their Bluetooth headphones as well. Congratulations. And the best speaker, Ms. Bertrand, also receives her trophy for winning that award. Best speaker in this afternoon's debate, Ms. Berja Bertrand of the Afro Waldron SDA Academy. So, this concludes the first semi-final debate. The coach, my Mrs. Williams asked me about the prize for the coach. The coach is moving to the finals. So in the finals, we will see the coaches, the support team of the Afro Waldron SDA Academy, and so you will be rewarded at that time. So thank you very much. If the winners of this debate would like to stay and see their competition, they are free to do so. The next debate coming up right now is the Northeast Comprehensive School against the Orion Academy. But this concludes the first semi-final debate. The judges, thank you so much. We have some tokens for you, so I'll call you up to receive your tokens. I'll call on Mrs. Elizabeth Xavier Daly to receive her token from us for her job this afternoon. Thank you. Mr. David Edwards, the Chief Judge. And Miss Gail Sharpless. Thank you. So now, thank you so much. Yes. So now we get ready for the second debate. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's just take a 5-minute break to set up for the second debate.